In the aftermath of the great capture, as Ijapa and his sons dangled from the traps like forgotten fruits on a high branch, the village of Aremu buzzed with a mix of triumph and relief. Fokoko, the valiant guard, stood tall beneath the swaying captives, his chest puffed with pride. The ropes creaked under their weights, and Ijapa's shell, already cracked from the fall, gleamed in the dappled sunlight filtering through the iroko leaves. Aderinu and Adeshewa watched from a safe distance, their faces a blend of vindication and exhaustion. Words spread like wildfire through the thatched huts and winding paths, reaching the palace where the king, Oba Adeyemi, had regrouped after his own hasty retreat. The king, still smarting from the embarrassment of fleeing the bush paths, his royal cap left behind in the dust, summoned Fokoko to the palace courtyard. The elders had gathered under the ancient iroko tree that shaded the throne, its gnarled roots a symbol of the deep Yoruba ancestry that bound the kingdom. Oba Adeyemi, a man whose lineage traced back to the legendary Oduduwa, the progenitor of the Yoruba people, sat upon his carved wooden throne adorned with brass beads and cowrie shell. His agbada flowed like a river of indigo, embroidered with motifs of the conquest and history known all over the land of Ife, the cradle of Yoruba civilization.
Fokoko, my bravest warrior,
the king boomed, his voice echoing across the courtyard where drummers had seized their rhythms to listen.
You have unmasked the trickster who plagued our paths and shamed even our king. For this, I reward you beyond gold or land. You shall have the hand of my daughter Ojuolape in marriage. She is the pearl of Aremu, and with her, your house shall be exalted.
The elders murmured in approval. You see, in Yoruba tradition, the king's word was law, woven into the fabric of a society where paternal authority reigned absolutely supreme. Fathers and kings alike held the reins of destiny, especially for daughters whose unions sealed alliances, preserved lineages, and honored ancestors. This patriarchal order, rooted in the ancient city-states of Oyo and Benin, where obas were both fierce and dangerous, whose kings were treated as God, left very little room for personal whims. Marriages were not mere matters of the heart, but bridges between families, fortified by dowries of yams, cloth, and sometimes, as in the old tales of the old Oyo Empire, even slaves or cattle. Fokoko bowed deeply. His muscular frame glistened with sweat from the morning's exertion. He was a man of 40 seasons, his skin marked by scars from hunts in the dense forest that bordered the kingdom. Already wed to 2 wives anyways, he had fathered 7 children, their laughters filling his compound like chatter of weaver birds. Yet his eyes lit with ambition at the king's offers. Now, Ojuolape was no ordinary prize. You see, she was the king's only daughter, her beauty whispered about from Aremu to the distant markets of Ibadan. Fokoko had pursued her before, sending emissaries with gifts of kola nut and fine adire cloth, but she had turned him away each time, her refusals polite yet firm. As the crowd dispersed, the news reached the inner chambers of the palace where Queen Adebisi, Ojuolape's mother, tended to her weaving loom.
Olórí, ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ kan mà ti ṣẹlẹ̀. Ọba Adéyẹmí mà ti fún Fokoko lójúọlápé. Báyìí bí mo ṣe ń bá yín sọ̀rọ̀ lọ́wọ́, ọba ti ní pé Fokoko yóò fẹ́ Ojuolape. Ǹjẹ́ ẹ faramọ́? Olórí ṣé ẹ faramọ́? Kò yé wa o. Ṣé ẹ̀dẹ̀ mọ̀ tí Fokoko jẹ́? Ṣé ẹ mọ irú èèyàn tí Fokoko jẹ́ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ olóbìnrin yìí?
Adebisi was a woman of quiet strength, her lineage from the noble houses of Abeokuta, where women had once wielded influence as Iyalo days, female chieftains who advised kings during the Egba migration in the 19th century. Yet, even she bowed to the patriarchal currents that flowed through Yoruba life, currents strengthened by centuries of oral histories passed down through griots and family elders. So when a messenger relayed the king's decree, Adebisi's hands froze on the shuttle, the half-woven ashoke cloth slipping from her grasp. Her heart twisted like a vine caught in a storm.
ẹ̀gbọ́n náà Fokoko aláya méjì lọ́ba Adéyẹmí fún Ojuolape. Ọba ò sì tiẹ̀ lè béèrè bóyá Ojuolape nẹ́ni tó nífẹ̀ẹ́ sí. Kí la wá ṣe ṣèrú eléyìí sí báyìí? Abirú àdánwò wo rèé o? Ọlọ́run, irú ìgbésẹ̀ wo la gbé sírú ọ̀rọ̀
How
bẹ́ẹ̀?
could her husband, the man she had stood beside through droughts and festival, undermine their daughter's will so casually? Ojuolape had confided in her about her disdain for Fokoko.
Ìyá mi, ṣé rí obìnrin tó bá fẹ́ Fokoko yìí? Kò rọ́kọ fẹ́ o. Tí Fokoko ṣe ń wọlé ló ṣe ń wọ̀de olóríṣiríṣi obìnrin. Ẹ ò sì lè fẹ́ Fokoko kọ́kàn yín lè balẹ̀.
Speaking of his roving eyes and the rumors that swirled around him like smoke from a blacksmith's forge, Adebisi remembered her own youth, betrothed at 16 to Adeyemi in a union arranged by their fathers to unite two rival clans. She had entered marriage a virgin, her purity a badge of honor, not dictated by distant gods of foreign faith, but by the deep Yoruba ethos of self-respect and family legacy. In the old ways, chastity before marriage was a thread in the tapestry of character, ensuring that bloodlines remained untainted and that unions bore fruit blessed by the ancestors. It was a cultural covenant whispered in proverbs around evening fires. The patient dog eats the fattest bone, they said, reminding the young that restraint built enduring strength. Now, as she heard the words of her husband, tears welled in Adebisi's eyes. She pictured Ojuolape's face, soft like the petals of a sunflower, yet fierce in her conviction. The queen's emotions surged, anger at the king's impulsiveness, sorrow for her daughter's stolen choice, and a quiet fear that this decree will shatter the fragile peace in their home. She rose, her wrapper rustling, and sought out Ojuolape in the garden where the princess often retreated to tend herbs passed down from the generations of Yoruba healers. Ojuolape was there, crushing Iru seeds under a mortar, her mind far from the task. At 20 seasons, she embodied the grace of Yoruba royalty, her hair braided in intricate shuku styles, adorned with coral beads. She had heard the news from a gossiping attendant and now knelt in the soil, her hands trembling. Her love for Keshinro, the blacksmith, was no fleeting fancy.
Keshinro mi, kí la wá ṣe báyìí? Fokoko tí gbogbo ọkàn mi ò kàn tiẹ̀ fẹ́ràn rárá. Báwo lọba ṣe lè so mí pọ̀ mọ́ Fokoko? Gbogbo ìfẹ́ tí mo ní sí Keshinro.
Keshinro was the son of a master craftsman from the guilds of Ogbomoso, where iron workers traded their skills to Ajirogba, the great blacksmith and warrior. Keshinro's forge rang with the songs of hammers on anvils, shaping tools and ornaments that traveled to the markets as far as the Niger River. Short and full-bearded, with skin like polished ebony and eyes that sparkled like stars over the savannah, he was the most handsome man in Aremu, but it was his respect that captured her heart. They had met during the New Yam Festival 2 years prior, when they both participated in a sharing contest and danced through the streets, honoring their forebears. Among the whirl of colors and drums, Keshinro had approached her not with bold advances, but with a gift, a finely wrought iron bracelet, etched with symbols of fertility and protection. Their conversations bloomed in secret meetings by the river. Very pure conversations they were, where they spoke of dreams under the moonlit palms. Keshinro honored her vow of chastity, never pressing beyond stolen glances and whispered promises.
Ojuolape mi ọ̀wọ́n, sórí ìfẹ́ tí mo ní sí ọ yìí kìí ṣe ìfẹ́ kékeré o, ó dàbí ijù òwúrọ̀ ni. Àlàáfíà rẹ ni máa ń jí ní Ojuolape. Sórí ìfẹ́ wa ó tutù mímímí ó sì mọ́, kò lẹ́kàn, kò lété kò sì lékè. Ojuolape, mo nífẹ̀ẹ́ rẹ, mo nífẹ̀ẹ́ rẹ púpọ̀.
Our union, he said, will be as pure as the first rain, he would say with a beaming smile across his face, echoing the Yoruba value of patience in love, a tradition that predated colonial influence and rooted in the communal harmony of extended families. When Adebisi found her, Ojuolape's composure cracked.
Mother, how can father do this?
She whispered, her voice breaking like a clay pot.
Fokoko is a man who sees women as conquests, not companions. He has wives already and children older than I. And his ways, they mock purity I hold dear. The same purity you taught me from your own life.
Adebisi pulled her daughter into an embrace, her own tears mingling with Ojuolape's.
My child, the king's word is like the river. It flows unyielding. But remember, even rivers can be diverted by clever hands. Your father acts from gratitude, blinded by Fokoko's deed. Yet, in our culture, while fathers command, wisdom and cunning minds can sway fates.
As mother and daughter consoled each other, whispers of the decree spread beyond the palace. In the marketplace, where women battered yams and palm oil under canopies of woven raffia, tongues wagged about the mismatch. Fokoko, emboldened, began preparations for the wedding, sending his kin to consult his soon-to-be in-laws for auspicious dates. But Ojuolape's heart remained with Keshinro. That evening, she slipped out under the cover of dusk, meeting him at their secret spot by Odoyalaro. The water murmured like ancestral voices, carrying tales from the times of Alaafin Foyo, whose empire stretched across the grasslands.
Keshinro, the king has bound me to Fokoko,
she said, her voice trembling as fireflies danced around them. His face hardened, but his eyes remained gentle.
Then we must find a way, my love. Our bond is forged in respect, not force. I will not let tradition steal what the heart has claimed.
Their love, pure and patient, stood as a testament to Yoruba ideals of fidelity and restraint. Unlike Fokoko, whose reputation included dalliances that flouted these norms, tales of midnight visit to widows' huts whispered in the shadows of compounds, Keshinro embodied the blacksmith's discipline, hammering his desires into submission like molten iron. Meanwhile, back in the bush, Ijapa and his sons had been lowered from the traps, bound and dragged to the palace dungeon. Ijapa the trickster groaned, his cracked shell a painful reminder of his folly. Guards mocked him, but Ojuolape, ever compassionate, visited in secret. She had heard of Ijapa's cunning from childhood stories, how he once outwitted the elephant in tales passed from the grells of Dahomey borders.
Ijapa,
She whispered through the bars.
I have spoken on your behalf to the king, and he has granted me the right to free you. However, if I free you, will you help me undo this decree? Your wit could sway even the king.
Ijapa's eyes gleamed.
Princess, release me, and I shall weave a plan finer than spider silk.
With a nod, she loosened his bonds under the moon's watchful eye. Ijapa scurried into the night, his mind already spinning schemes. He knew Fokoko's weakness, his impatience with chastity, a flaw that clashed with the cultural reverence for purity Ojuolape cherished, inherited from her mother's unyielding example. As dawn broke over Aremu, the stage was set for intrigue. Ijapa had designed a plot that would test Fokoko's character. The plan, a trial disguised as a ritual, rooted in ancient Yoruba customs of betrothal tests, where suitors proved their worth not just in strength, but in virtue. Ijapa would convince the king to impose a period of seclusion where Fokoko must live near Ojuolape without touching her, honoring the chastity rites of old.
If he failed, the decree would dissolve.
But as the village prepared for the unfolding drama, tensions simmered. Queen Adebisi confronted the king in their private quarters, her voice a storm.
Adeyemi, you treat our daughter like butter for a favor. Is this the legacy of fathers? To crush a woman's spirit under paternal whim?
The king wavered, but pride held him firm in his place. However, little did he know that Ijapa's cunning would soon unravel it all.